Ta-da! We're live. Hello, everyone. This is me. You know who I am. But I am joined today by Nikhil. He is the main man behind the Kelp trading bot. So we thought we'd bring him on and have him give a workshop, just an overview of what Kelp is, how you can use it, what it's good for, and then some basic building blocks for how you can start using this in applications or for your own trading purposes. Nikhil, welcome. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me, Tyler. Excited to talk about Kelp.
Super. So we'll just kind of let you take it away. As people have questions, feel free to drop those in the Twitch chat, and I'll monitor that and ask as we get closer to the end. But feel free to take it away.
Awesome, thank you. So I am using one of my old PowerPoint presentations just as a reference. So maybe I can share my screen. Let's see. Okay. Awesome. So this is actually the presentation that I gave at Meridian. And yeah, so I'm just going to be using these slides as a reference. So let's see, Kelp, the DEX liquidity problem and how Kelp helps. So basically, what is Kelp, right? Let's start with that. Kelp is an automated trading and liquidity bot that allows anyone to create instant liquidity on any supported trading platform. So basically, as the description says, Kelp is a piece of software that allows you to basically spin it up, specify what markets you want to trade in, put the various keys that you have associated to either the Stellar decentralized exchange or for a centralized exchange, select the you can also use some of the trading templates that we have to create your own customized trading strategy. Select which trading strategy you want to run from the ones that you've constructed and run that using a Kelp bot. And of course, it's important to point out that using Kelp should be done at your own risk. If you set bad parameters or market conditions change, Kelp actually might help you to lose money very fast. So be smart and go slow. With that out of the way, this is an example of what an illiquid market looks like. So where you have wide spreads, as you can see in this image, you also have shallow markets. And as a result of that, in the all trade section, it shows that there's no trades. So that's because if someone wants to convert between these two assets, there's no one on the other side who's willing to offer them the token that they want in exchange for the one that they're offering. And therefore, there's no activity happening on this market. Let's take a look at what the market might look like once you deploy Kelp. So this is a liquid market where the spreads are a lot narrower and the markets are very deep. And as a result of that, there's many trades that take place because you're in a position to offer both of these assets at prices that are workable for you, as well as ones that the counterparties and the traders want to take them at. So this is what I would classify as a healthy market. So these are some of the things that you can do with Kelp. It's integrated with over 100 centralized exchanges using the CCXT REST plugin. There are 5 trading templates with configuration files, actually 6. You can code your proprietary trading strategies and exchange integrations and also price feeds. So you can really use Kelp as a framework, and that's actually the best way to use Kelp, where you can write your own code, and you don't have to worry about the boilerplate code of how do you get the trading bot connected to the exchange, all of that stuff. You can just work on exactly the piece that you want while borrowing from the rest of it. So Kelp is basically a working trading bot, and you can plug in exactly what you want where you want it. Kelp was open sourced in the summer of 2018, and it's licensed under Apache 2.0. It's got the command line tool written in Golang. And we also have a GUI which has a front end written in React.js, and the back end is written in Golang for the APIs, and it uses a lot of the Kelp command line trading tool. And it's actually one of the fastest open source Golang trading bots, where the update loop time can be done in a sub-second. So if you really wanted to use this even as a high frequency trading bot, that is possible. And this is actually available on pretty much all platforms, on Windows, Linux, Mac OS, even Raspberry Pi. And we also have a Docker image that you can use to run Kelp. So let's take a look at what the GUI looks like. So this is what the GUI looks like when you have all of the trading bots. So you have like this little thing that tells you like the blue icon that says that it's on the public network. It specifies the trading strategy, keeping in mind that the GUI currently is in beta and only supports one strategy, which is the buy-sell strategy. And it also only runs on Stellar decentralized exchange for now. You can start and stop bots. You can view balances of your accounts. You can view the spreads on the market. You can also view the open orders, how many orders you have. There's also, you can view the offers from your account. You can go to the exchange website and see the actual market. So this is how it looks like when two bots are started, where it shows that they are running. It shows that you have one bid and one ask for the first bot. It has 4 bids and 4 asks for the second bot. And they're both highlighted in green to show that they're running. Now, when you click on a bot's name, it allows you to see the details of the bot in read-only mode, as you can see with the icon in the top right. And it shows you all the details of the bot. And of course, this is running in testnet. Now, when you click on the edit bot button from the 3 dots from the previous screen, you can edit the bot, like for example, the secret key or the assets that it's trading, or a bunch more things like the price feed, the level to adjust the depth of the market that you want to trade on. It also shows you the current price, so you know exactly what price you're going to be placing on the market. And it kind of also, to simplify that, explains that in a simple sentence in English, so it doesn't really confuse you as to what you're selling, what are you selling for what price, because sometimes that can get a little confusing. In this example, we show how you can select a price feed from, I think it's from Binance, and the Kelp trading bot in this example would just take the price source and have the relevant spread. In this case, I think it's 0.1% from that price. And the number on the right side of the screen shows you what that specific price feed is outputting. So you can know exactly what bids and asks are going to be placed from your bot. So setting the bot up in this way allows you to create a custom strategy for your bot that you can deploy using these templates that we have. We also have these advanced settings, some of which allow you to edit the update interval. You can set it in maker-only mode, so you don't have your bot take any offers if that's what you want. You can have randomized time delays. So you, for example, if you're concerned that someone might recognize that you're a bot that is doing the same thing every X number of seconds, you can add this randomized time delay. You can also track fills and see when trades are taken from your bot. You can adjust the fee configuration when you're trading on the Stellar decentralized exchange. So now that was basically how the Kelp GUI works. Let's go into some of the trading templates that we have and centralized exchanges that are supported. So these are some of the main trading templates that we support. The first one is the AMM template. So we have the balanced and the pendulum trading templates. They allow you to price tokens based on their relative demand. So this is pretty standard, like what you would find in any AMM solution on various blockchains. And one of the things that this can help with is it'll let the market surface the true price. Then we have the mirror strategy, the mirror trading template, which allows you to mirror an order book from another exchange. It also allows you to perform exchange arbitrage. such that you're able to port liquidity from a more liquid exchange onto a less liquid exchange. The way we do this is in the Kelp configuration. You can customize your bot to have it offset your position. So anytime someone buys a certain asset from you on your primary exchange, it allows you to turn around and buy that asset at a small profit on the backing exchange. And I would like to note a technicality that it is only a profit unless the price suddenly moves against you. So when you're adjusting and configuring your trading strategy, you should take spreads into account. And there's various risk factors to play with, all of which you can customize your trading strategy using configuration files. Then we get to the buy-sell strategy. So that's the one that is available in the Kelp GUI. This allows you to create bids and asks using a price feed and a spread. And this basically allows you to do things like, let's just say, if you have a specific forecasting algorithm that you think is useful, you could plug that into the buy-sell trading template and have a customized trading strategy based on that. And I'm sure you can come up with better ways to use buy-sell strategy. It's a pretty standard one in a repository of strategies one might use. Another standard trading configuration that people have is the TWAP trading template, which is the time-weighted average price. Unlike the other trading templates, this is what people would more often call an execution strategy template as opposed to a trading strategy template. So what this allows you to do is, if you know that, for example, you want to accumulate a certain token at or below a specific price, you can have that trade happen over time using the TWAP trading template. So you can configure it with various parameters, such as an upper price bound or a lower price bound to be done in buy mode or sell mode. So if you hypothetically want to say that I want to accumulate $1,000 worth of Bitcoin today, but I wanted to span all of my trades across the next 24 hours, you could use something like the TWAP trading template. So these are some of the centralized exchanges that we support that are officially tested. And there's also 100 more that you can play around with, all provided to us by the CCXD REST crypto trading API. And let's get into some ideas of what you can do to help make Stellar's DEX more connected using Kelp. So you could use price feeds from centralized exchanges to place orders on the DEX. You could use price feeds from fiat sources to place orders on the DEX. You could mirror crypto markets from faster centralized exchanges onto slower exchanges like the DEX, and capture the spread between the Stellar decentralized exchange and centralized exchanges, thereby porting over some of that liquidity from the faster exchanges onto a slower exchange like the DEX, which has a 5-second ledger close time. You could also create an AMM using the balance trading template or the pendulum trading template between fiat to fiat pairs, such as variants of USD, like, for example, USDC and USDT, or USDC and EURT on the Stellar DEX, or NGN, BRL, etc. You could, of course, also do this with crypto fiat pairs and all of that. It's important to keep in mind the various properties of a market. When you're trading crypto versus fiat, it's generally going to be more volatile than if you trade fiat versus fiat, or even crypto versus crypto. So it's important to keep these properties of various trading pairs in mind when you select the trading strategy that you want to create. And again, of course, none of this is financial investment trading or legal advice. Please do your own research. So I don't have a roadmap for you today. This is the link that you can use to download Kelp. Of course, you can just go to the GitHub repo by going to kelp.io, and then there's a releases page, which I will be showing you next, that you can use to download the binaries. So why don't I get into that? Okay, so this is basically, I guess you can't see my URL bar. It's basically github.com/stellar/kelp. And you can basically go through the code if you want. This is the README. There's a bunch of things to read. A screenshot of the GUI, table of contents. So why don't we go to getting started, which is the next section. So there's two ways you can get Kelp. One is you can download the Kelp binary. So here are links of the latest release of the GUI. There's also the command line tools that you can use. All of these are supported on all the three platforms. The GUI is not supported on Raspberry Pi. If you want to use on Raspberry Pi, I'm not sure which one of these three you can use. I think it's one of them, maybe 5 or 6, I'm not sure. And once you're using the command line tool, you can just enter these commands to basically unzip the file, whatever the file name ends up being based on the version and the platform. You can go into the folder and then you'll find the Kelp binary in there, which we'll be demoing soon. You can click on that and it's going to basically give you the list of commands that you can run. To actually make it run a trade command against the sample files that we've provided, you can run this. So it's really as simple as downloading it and typing kelp trade C for the config file. This is the sample trader file is where you enter the secret keys. The strategy that you select is a buy-sell strategy. And you really create the strategy using the sample buy-sell.cfg file, where you customize the strategy based on your needs, based on the market you want to run. This --sim allows you to run it in simulation mode. So the trading bot is going to tell you exactly what it's going to do, but not actually executing those trades. Once you see that run for a little bit, you can see that you're happy with what it's doing, and then you can potentially run it in non-simulation mode. Of course, you can also run this on the test network before you run it on the production network. If you also add the -L option after this, it'll log to a file. And you can also provide a prefix to that file. So for example, you can do -L logs / buy sell. So it's going to prefix that to the log file that it generates, and it would place it in the logs folder, because as part of the prefix, you specified -L, you specified log /, so it's going to go to the logs folder. So I always find that it's super helpful to log to a log file, so you can look back if there's any errors, or if you want to know exactly what the bot did in a specific situation. That's always helpful. The second option, which I think for developers, they would prefer going with this approach, is to compile from source. So note that all of the commands that we have in Kelp in the various install files and all of that are specific to bash. So you would need to use the bash shell to do this. And we have this build script that is what we use to build Kelp. This is a little non-standard compared to what you would do with a normal Golang program, where you could just type go build. But this does a few things for you that allows you to build various things, including the command line tool, build it for multiple platforms, build a GUI, all of that together without having to sort of worry about multiple commands. And it gives you a nice set of options that you can run against this build script. And that requires bash. So that is one limitation, but that works on Windows as well when you're using the Windows subsystem for Linux. Yeah, this is pretty standard. You can download and set up Golang v1.13 or later. We still use Glide. I find that works pretty well. Potentially we'll be updating that soon. That's something that open source contributors can help with. I definitely would want to move to Go modules. Install Yarn and Node.js to build the Kelp GUI. Clone the repo, install the dependencies using Glide. We have this ASCII Electron bundler that we make use of to wrap the Kelp GUI in an Electron shell. For that, we have this ASCII Electron bundler that does that for Go programs. So that's a requirement. If you don't want to run it in Electron and you want to run it only in the browser, you might not need this, but it's fairly easy to get. It's like a two-step process. Then you finally run this build script. And then once it's built, you'll have this bin kelp folder. You'll have the bin folder. Inside that, you'll have the kelp binary. You can run the version command to test that it's run properly. And before you run kelp with the trade command, like we showed earlier, you would need to run CCXT REST if you want support of these 100 plus centralized exchanges. We've integrated with the CCXT REST library, and this command allows you to run it in Docker. You could also run it directly as a binary. We have that option in the releases page that you can download. I generally find that this Docker command is very easy to use and portable to all platforms with Docker installed. Okay, so that said, there are a bunch of other things on here. There are some cool things that you could do. So I think now would be a good option to just go over some of the features that could be useful to use with Kelp. We have support for Postgres. So if you have Postgres installed, you could have all the trades that your Kelp bot is doing be directly downloaded into this database. So if you wanted to run analytics on this, or just want a record of all your trades rather than having to go to some other website to get trades, if you're doing this on a Stellar decentralized exchange, you could get this directly in your database. I found that it's sometimes hard to get these trades even from centralized exchanges because they only allow you a fixed window in which you can get trades. So I think you should definitely consider using Postgres to download trades if you're going to be doing a lot of trades with Kelp. I think one of the best places to get started with Kelp is the walkthrough guides. So common to all of these walkthroughs is just setting up a trading account for the Stellar DEX. We basically use a sample token called coupon, which is just like, it could be anything. I just called it coupon. And we set that up to have this coupon token be valued equal to $1 and have it trade against some other tokens, just as an example. At the end of all of these, or rather each of these walkthrough guides, you will have customized your own trading strategy using one of the existing templates in a way that you want, and be able to run that on the test network. And of course, if you want to port that over to the production network, it would be as simple as just changing the Horizon URL from Horizon testnet stellar.org to horizon.stellar.org. Or if you have your own custom Horizon instance, you could easily change that to your own custom instance as well. These are a link to all of the sample files. When you download the Kelp binary from the releases page, you will get a copy of these sample files as well. When we hosted the Kelp Stellar Battle back in August and September of 2020, there were a lot of very interesting and useful posts that some of the participants came up with. And users of Kelp have generally found this to be very helpful when trying to set up Kelp as sort of community-generated walkthroughs to Kelp. So I would definitely encourage you to take a look at these as well. Some of them, for example, are focused on getting up and running with Windows. So these sections are a little more detailed around the various components of Kelp and go into the more technicalities of how Kelp is structured. I think that might be out of scope of a call like this, but I'm definitely happy to do something that's more of a technical deep dive if there's interest. If you have questions around Kelp, the best place to ask is actually Keybase, which is not listed here. We have a channel on Keybase in the Stellar public team. The channel is called Kelp. You can also ask questions on the Stellar Stack Exchange using the Kelp tag. You should consider signing up for the announcements distribution list. That's where I generally announce new releases of Kelp. Also on the rStellar subreddit, I announce these releases. We also have a user mailing list that you can use to discuss Kelp with other Kelp users. You could also discuss that in the Stellar public channel in Keybase. And let's see. With that said, this would probably be a good opportunity to jump into the releases page where you can actually download Kelp. Okay, so here we have a list of all of the releases, past and present. And standard listing changes. There's an instructional video of how to get up and running with the Kelp GUI. There's specific instructions based on each platform. Here's a video that you can use to enable Windows subsystem for Linux on Windows. And once you've done that, you can follow the instructions on the Linux OS section out here. And yeah, this is something for Mac as well. Yeah, we enabled the Kelp GUI in RC2 beta on the Stellar mainnet. Yeah, you can always follow open issues in the GitHub issues tab. Yeah, here's a secret key for the coupon issuer. It's also listed in the sample trader file that you can use if you want to issue new tokens to yourself. Yeah, you can information about how to contact me if you have questions. Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
This has been super helpful just to get a good clean walkthrough of the different places you can go to look into Kelp. I do have a couple of questions personally, but maybe before we get into those, can we take a look at? Can you actually pop in one of those config files and just kind of walk us through what a config file looks like? Looked like maybe there were two. One where you were putting keys, and another one that was actually controlling the trading algorithm or the trading configuration.
Yeah.
So
why don't I hop over to my command line and share that.
Only leak secret keys. You're fine leaking.
It's all on the test network.
That's right. And yeah, super.
Okay.
And then if you can just make that type wherever you're loading up, whether it's on the just make that a little bigger. Super.
Okay. Is that good?
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So let's see. So basically, I've already compiled this, but I'm just going to go over what this directory looks like. There's a bunch of things that are not part of the repo, like, for example, there's like a configs directory. I can't find it in this mess, but there is a configs directory and the logs directory. I believe that those are not automatically, they are excluded using the git ignore. So you don't have to worry if you're developing that you keep your configs in there. It's generally a very easy thing to use to store your configs rather than having to store them outside of this folder. That said, I'm going to run the scripts build right now. And so basically what you do, once you download Kelp from source, once you've just pulled it, the first thing to do would be glide install, right? So let's run through that. So all of the dependencies are hard-coded with a specific version. So in 99.99% of the cases, you should get the exact same build that I or any other developer will get. In rare cases, there are some differences. And if that's the case, I think that would be a good opportunity to file an issue on GitHub or just reach out to me on Keybase, and I can try helping you out with that specific dependency. Okay, so it's installed for us. Now let's run the build script. Okay, so I think this is a good option to go through exactly what this is doing. This is now telling you that this is the version and all of that stuff that you will be building against. It's installing the various web dependencies. This is mostly to build the Kelp GUI. It is doing a bunch of other things like taking the JavaScript files, converting that into converting that into sort of a binary format that you can then use to put that into the Go binary file that we will be using, so that when you deploy the Kelp GUI, it's being served off a virtual file system that allows us to give you one single binary that does everything. This bundle.json is related again to the UI with the ASCII Electron bundle that we have. It's building it only for your native platform. And maybe that's also a good opportunity to, so with that, basically we have this bin kelp. So that's where we have a binary. And just to sort of go through the full process that we have in the instructions, I'm going to type bin kelp version. And I basically see, and if you look up above, this will match exactly what we had above. So let's look at the build script and see what else it can do. So if you just do -h, you can do a bunch of other things. Most of these are just for me, like kind of like deploying it, doing a force deploy, all that stuff. For mostly all you need to do is just do this scripts build, and it'll just build for you. If you type bin kelp without any parameters, we have this cool ASCII art. And it also shows you example configurations, example commands that you can run, and the various available commands. Like with any command line tool, you can take any one of these commands and type the -h flag against it to get more information. So let's just say I do bin kelp trade -h. So now these are specific commands and options against the trade command. So for example, this is the bot configuration, which is the trading bot's basic config file path. This is the strategy that you want to run. This is the strategy config file path. This is to run it in simulation mode. This is the -l or -- log that I was talking about. And let's see. Yeah, some people have asked there is a delete strategy in Kelp. So how do you basically have that run only once and quit after it's deleted all of your existing open orders? So you could do that by this iter command, where you do --iter1, and it's going to delete all of your existing open offers. And yeah, there's a bunch of other things. We also have this exchange command, kelp exchanges, which we saw above when we did kelp help. So this doesn't really view very well at this size of font, but it basically shows you all of the exchanges that we have supported, where if you look at all of these columns, it tells you whether trading is enabled or not. Most of them, if not all, have trading enabled by default, but only a few of them are actually tested. And then there's this other thing about atomic post only if you want to do maker only mode, where in this case, I think it's Coinbase that has a feature that we opt in for, so that Coinbase itself is atomically ensuring the post only capability. In the rest of these exchanges, we sort of emulate a post only capability when you do maker only mode, but it's not atomic. And yeah, so I think as you can see, all of this is CCXD REST because the line is wrapping over. But basically, all of these need support for CCXD REST. So that's the exchanges. So now why don't we try and run the sample configuration file? So I've actually taken the liberty of copying them over in this config.stu directory. This is exactly what you'll see when you download the pre-built binary. So again, copying over from the GitHub repo, what we want to do is bin kelp trade -c for the sample trader file. Then -l for the buy sell trading configuration, -f for the trading configuration file. So that's going to be sample buy sell. And why don't we run this in simulation mode to begin with? And I'm going to log this in just for now, config.stu/logs/buy sell sim. Oops. Let's try that again to create the folder. Okay, so I saw something at the beginning of this file that was important. And I think most people who run Kelp for the first time encounter this, which is something like this, which says that ccxg rest is not running. So we've tried to, in our sample configuration file, we've tried to use a ccxg configuration. I think actually in this case, we have not. So why don't we just go into that configuration file first? Sorry, this would actually be in the buy sell file. Okay. So we have only one exchange integration besides Stellar DEX, the Kraken integration that is also available natively. So that's why this the Kelp bot in this case was able to continue. In most other cases, you would see it fail where it says that we can't connect to the exchange. But before I show you this file, I would like to show you just a sample of, actually, maybe I'll do that later, of how you enable ccxg rest by just running the Docker image. So quickly running through this configuration file, sorry, I'm going to start with the sample trader file. Okay, so this is where you specify the trading secret seed. This is the one that everyone gets as the sample file. So when you're running this, generally what I say is if you're running this even on the testnet, there's a few people that end up using the same trading account or source secret seed. So it's probably better to create new accounts here. So that way you're not clashing with other people trying to run Kelp. And then you'll always find that, for example, you might have sequence numbers mismatched. So then your bot will never really run. So it's important to basically generate new keys for both of these values if you're running on the Stellar test network against this, with this sample configuration file. I'll show you specify the tokens you want to run. You specify the code and then the issuer. That's for one asset. Asset code A typically will represent your base asset. The same thing for the counter asset would be represented as asset code B and issuer B. If you noticed, issuer A is blank. That's because it's the native currency, and that's the only one in the Stellar DEX that does not require you to have an issuer. For all the others, you need an issuer. Again, here you can use the issuer seed to generate and give yourself more of these coupon tokens, or really any other tokens you want without having to go through the burden of creating a new account. I sometimes just do things like I just change the value here and I've got a new token. Cool. Yeah, so each of these configuration parameters generally have a very descriptive explanation. So for example, tick interval seconds, how often you want the bot to run, specified in seconds, and it's deprecated, use tick interval millis instead. So the tick interval millis is specified as the same thing, 300 seconds, but in millis, so it's 300,000. Kind of the same explanation here, specified in millis. This allows us to be more precise in specifying in seconds. Hypothetically, if you wanted to run this on an exchange for faster than a second, you could basically specify a value that is less than 1,000 and you could run faster than a second. This is a randomized delay in milliseconds. There are some advanced configurations out here, some of which are not available in the GUI to keep it simple. Some have long explanations. Hopefully these explanations suffice. If they don't, feel free to raise an issue in GitHub or ping me on Keybase. Yeah, so I won't necessarily go into all the details of each of these. I'll just point out the important ones. Here's a Horizon URL if you want to change this from testnet to mainnet, or if you want to use your own Horizon. If you are running this with a centralized exchange, you will need to still specify the Horizon URL, but we won't use it. You would also need to specify up above where we had the asset code issuer. You would have to specify that in the correct pattern, where you specify an issuer if it's an asset that is not XLM. That is on my list of things to fix, but it doesn't really impair functionality, so I haven't had a chance to get to it yet. Let's see. Generally, you should try and run with monitoring when possible. Once you have this running, you can just hit this endpoint, and it's going to basically just give you a response saying successful true. So if that ever fails, you know that your Kelp bot is down. There are situations where the Kelp bot might not actually be placing orders. It might be stuck, but this monitoring port is running. That is something that I intend to fix soon. But at least this is some level of monitoring that you're able to get with Kelp by just commenting this out. Yeah, you can add SSL if you wanted to for monitoring as well. If you're trading on centralized exchanges, you would need to set these parameters about the precision of the various markets that you're trading on. You don't need this for SDEX because it's 7 units of decimals for all of them, and there's really no limitation on the minimum volume on the base asset or the code asset you need to trade. Centralized exchanges generally have those restrictions. And keeping in mind that this precision, 6 means 6 decimals, 1 means 1 decimal. If it's 0 decimals, you can have 0. This is the number of units of the base asset. So this, in this case, if it's dollars, this is $30. If it's Ethereum, this would be 30 Ethereum. So keep in mind that it's in units of the various base or code asset, as it's mentioned out here, base units, code units. If you enable Postgres, you will also need to enable this DB override account ID. So you can say, for example, that this is from account 1, this is from account 2. You can also say that this is from account or your public key for your account. It just basically creates a multi-tenancy aspect of the database. So you can run multiple Kelp bots against the same database if you want to run analytics across like 10 accounts that you're running using Kelp. This is where you specify the trading exchange, Kraken, or any other. If you want to run against CCXT, you should copy the name given in the list that you get when we ran the exchanges command. So Kelp exchanges. All the CCXT exchanges are prefixed with CCXT. So for example, it could be CCXT-Kraken in this case. Filters are pretty interesting. Again, very, very detailed comments here and examples so you can know exactly how to use them. Some examples of what you can do is you can say that I want to limit the daily volume that I'm trading, limiting on the sell side with base assets equal to 3,500 units. You could do something similar, but instead of limiting on the base asset, you limit on the code asset with 1,000 units. You could also specify against various market IDs if you want to sort of run multiple bots and have, like, say, for example, if you want to trade on 2 markets and have them share a common limit of the number of tokens you want to sell or buy. You could use this by limiting it on multiple market IDs. You could also do that with account IDs. You can limit on price, so you can say min price that you want to, whatever your action you've chosen, buy, sell, whatever, or both buy, sell, min price, max price. You can have, you can also have a dynamic price feed that you limit against. So you could say, for example, that I want it to be not more than the price I get from Kraken using this feed. And then this formula follows the same price feed schema of representation that we have, which I'll show you in the buy sell configuration. And this is, you'll also need to uncomment this if you choose to use Postgres, similar to what you have above, which is also commented here, so you don't forget. And then you can specify out here, if your trading exchange is not SDEX, you can specify API keys out here. You also have exchange parameters. So for example, Coinbase has a whole host of things that you need to specify. All of these are listed here as examples. So for example, like a simpler exchange that just has a key value pair, you could just have like the exchange key and secret up above here. But for the exchange parameters, you might, so exchange parameters is what you provide as query parameters, and exchange headers are what you provide as headers. So Coinbase, for example, specifies specifically what should be an exchange parameter, what should be the API key, what should be the header. And all of these examples, at least for now, until Coinbase changes their APIs, is exhaustive of what Coinbase requires. Just as an example, if you want to trade on Coinbase, I would also recommend that you look at Coinbase's API to make sure you got this correct. And that's it for this file. Why don't I go into the sample buy sell? Okay. So out here, with the buy sell, what we're doing is we're specifying a price feed. So we want to specify two things. So for each asset, the base asset, which is asset A, we want to specify the data type A, which is type exchange. Again, this is heavily commented to tell you what other types of data types you have available. There's also the data feed, which is dependent on the data type that you've set. For exchange, for the data type exchange, the pattern of the data feed URL is something like this, where you specify the exchange. So it could be Kraken, it could be CCXC, Bittrex, what have you. You have the base asset. Kraken has a different format of specifying assets. If you compare this string with the one above, you see that the one above is more generalized, like, for example, XLM USD as opposed to XLM Z USD. So I think that's important to keep in mind if you choose to go with Kraken. I don't think the CCXC Kraken integration works as well as the Kraken integration. So if you want to use Kraken, I would suggest taking a look at the native Kraken integration that we have. We have other types of feeds like crypto that takes from CoinMarketCap. We have a fixed feed, like if you want to trade against, if your A feed gives you a result, a value denominated in, say, dollars, you might want your data feed B to also be 1.0 if your code asset is dollars. Alternatively, you could use the currency layer, API layer, to have a fiat feed. So you would need an access key for that. I think there's one you can get for free. So you would just need to sort of plug that in here, and you can specify the currency that you want to use. You can also pull from the Stellar Decentralized Exchange. We also have a function feed that allows you to basically combine any of the existing feeds If you're modifying code, you can add different types of functions. For now, we have two functions that we specified, the max function, and we have the invert function. So you should also be able to do something like max of feed A, comma, max of feed B and feed C, or also include within that max of invert feed C and just uninverted feed D, or whatever. You can basically compose this as you wish. And as you add more functions, or if it's existing as examples in the code base, you could also combine those to sort of create exactly the kind of price feed that you want. There's explanations for these. Generally, when people are trading using fiat feeds, they might want to adjust the feed, like say add 0.01 units here or add a specific percent. So these would be useful. This is also available in the GUI. And this is where you set the levels on your buy sell strategy, like the spread or the amount. In this case, this is a 0.1% spread. This is specified. I believe this is from the mid price, not the bid-ask spread. So in this case, the bid-ask spread would be 0.2%. So I think that goes over the config files. And quickly, I would also like to just run ccxt. Okay. Okay. So that's pretty much all you need to run ccxt. Kelp automatically picks that up because it's running on port 3000, and Kelp is hard-coded to look at port 3000. In the trader file, you can specify a different port if you want. That's a sample field out there, which is commented out that you can uncomment if you want to change the port or even run it on a remote server. So that's pretty much all I had. What do you think, Tyler? Any questions?
Super. No, that's really helpful. I hadn't seen anybody walk through the actual configs before, so it was neat to have those explained a bit. We're pretty close on time, but I think something that would be interesting to hear from you, like this is a very complex tool that touches on a whole lot of different technologies. Kind of to close out a little bit on story time, what have you learned? What has the experience been like for you, kind of from ideation, this is a dream project of yours, to actually seeing it all the way through? What were maybe some unexpected twists and turns, things were easier or harder? And then just kind of looking to the future, what excites you about the fact that Kelp exists, and as people are using it, like it's really gaining some steam in popularity and use case. So first, some anecdotes of building something of this scale, and then maybe close out on how you would like to see, like where do you think there are gaps in how Kelp is being used, to maybe people could jump on. Okay, I'm going to try and use Kelp in this way, or some areas that you think you would like to see Kelp utilized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some tough questions. Let's see. So I think so the way Kelp came about is that first we just wanted to sort of be a tool that we could use internally, and then we found that there's a lot more we can do with it, and that's when the buy sell strategy was the first one that we implemented, and then I wanted to basically make this more flexible and modular, so we could adapt different trading templates and trading strategies into Kelp. And there's been a couple of re-architectures of the code base. And I think we've gotten now to a point where it's extremely modular, and you can basically plug and play any trading strategy that you want, any price feed that you want, any exchange that you want. And I think that's definitely been a very important, learning point for me while developing this. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think developers are really going to like developing with Kelp, because they will find the modular approach to Kelp very helpful. I think one thing that has taken me by surprise is Exchange APIs. You have to constantly monitor your Exchange endpoints, because sometimes they go down, they have their own issues. And that's kind of when I started developing some of these monitoring capabilities, again, which is nowhere near where I would like it to be. So that's something that I think we have to always be on top of things. There is like the CCXT REST library that we're using is, if anyone, like if you're looking at this command out here, it's v0.0.4. I think now they are on version 2 point something, or maybe even later, I'm not sure. So that's something that I think needs to be upgraded so you can get access to even more exchanges that they support. One thing I like about that is, we just need to basically upgrade that one library. And if you are in a position to run something like this Docker image, you get access to all of these new exchanges. So we didn't really have to implement integrations with 100 exchanges. We just had to implement this one CCXC library. And luckily, someone has created this CCXC REST wrapper that allows us to basically access it as a REST API. So I think, wherever we find ways to sort of improve our output to effort ratio, I think those are things that are great. I think that's another aspect of using Kelp, which is, like, one thing that I want is people to be able to use Kelp and not have to sort of rewrite their own bot, and they can just write their own trading strategy, or preferably, hopefully, contribute that back to the community so other people can take advantage of that and customize that strategy in any way that they want, or exchange integration. We have one partner to SDF that is actually improving the Kelp GUI to add OAuth support. That's actually a pull request that I will be merging tomorrow, that allows us to take Kelp as a service to the finish line, to where, for example, you could just go to this one website and get the Kelp GUI running for you and just log in as a user, rather than having even to download the Kelp GUI binary and run that yourself. And then they're also working on potentially adding delegated signing, so that your Kelp as a service is not storing your secret keys, and that's being delegated to some third party that maybe you control, and they're using SEP7 for that. So I think there's definitely a lot of room for where we will be able to take contributions, and there's not too much that like, we don't have too many people working on Kelp. So the more that the community is able to contribute, and even just run it, I think there's been so many issues that have been filed where people have just been using it themselves and they notice some issues. So I think all of that is extremely helpful and has really helped to sort of find issues and grow the project. So if you feel like, hey, this thing is not working for me, I would encourage you to reach out, because you might be the first one who's encountered that.
Super. I think so. To close up, last question for me. What are some of the projects? I think when I first encountered Kelp, it was like, oh, this is for liquidity providers. I'm not a liquidity provider. I might be a retail investor. Occasionally, I might spin up a business that needs to maintain some sort of books between two assets. Who's your kind of target audience for Kelp? And then where do you kind of see Kelp going as far as its usage? Is it still more of that institutional investor or business back-end service, or do you ideally see this being used more and more by retail investors? Where's kind of your target audience for Kelp?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I would like to say about Kelp and pretty much any trading bot is retail investors should be careful, because if you have a trading strategy that you've built up that you don't know is making you money, or is making you money only in specific situations, and you don't know the full implications of that, and you automate that, it might just help you to lose money faster, right? So automation isn't always good. So you really need to know what you're doing. Not to say that retail investors don't know what they're doing, but generally there's a lot more retail investors that are not as familiar with automated trading than are institutional investors. this is not necessarily targeted towards any one category. I think I would like to say maybe developers are a bigger focus because while you can take Kelp, download it, and use it, it's really, I think, the code and the framework that allows you to customize Kelp in whichever way you want, which is where you see a lot of the benefits of a project like Kelp. Yeah, I think I'm definitely focusing a lot more on the GUI side of things. I see that there's areas where we can make that simpler and make it easier to basically do a lot of what we've already done, but do it with less steps, and support more trading templates on the GUI, support more exchanges on the GUI. Yeah. Did I answer all the questions?
Yeah, that's super. That's a really good answer. All right, so where can people find you? Where can people get involved? I know we've got our GitHub. You've mentioned Keybase. Maybe just call out the places you would like people to wind up, and we'll close it out.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to add to the last part I said, which is so Kelp can be used for trading and for liquidity provisioning. Like we don't have any trading strategies per se in there right now, like for example, like an EMA strategy or a trend following strategy or whatever else. Those are actually relatively easy to add. So if someone does want to add them, feel free to ping me and I can help you add them. And as to where you can reach me on Twitter at Nikhil Saraf9 is my handle. You can reach me on Keybase. Keybase is probably the best place to reach me if you're looking to contribute, or you can just open up an issue on GitHub, and you can find a way to connect. So I'm available on all of these 3 platforms. And yeah, definitely sign up for the announcements list if you're interested in knowing how the project develops.
All right. Super duper. Thanks so much, Nikhil. I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on and share a little bit about Kelp. Looking forward to see that project mature, and hopefully we'll get some good community support headed in that direction.
Thank you, Tyler. This has been great.
All right. Super. See you all. Thanks for joining.